Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 207, Action Always Aligned. Having recently spoken about the gentle awakening, realising potential and the weight of regrets, it seems only natural to finally be speaking about action taking. Not any old action though. I'm not a believer in any action being better than none. If only more organisations would see that aligned action and the resultant productivity is way more impactful than the presenteeism that they're encouraging. So in this episode, I'll be sharing how to get clear about what aligned action means and how to take those first important steps. As you might imagine, the place to start is understanding your motivation, your genuine why, not what someone else is saying you should do. I'm sure we've all seen or heard Simon Sinek talking about the importance of starting with why. And although it's generally applied to organisations, it applies equally well to individuals. According to Sinek, our personal why represents the deeper sense of purpose, values and beliefs that drive actions and decisions. Just what we're looking for here. So the necessary precursor to intentional action is being really aware of where and how you are and why you don't want to stay there. And if you're entirely happy where and how you are, then it's not your time for intentional action. That doesn't mean that you'll be completely static, but the actions you take might be opportunistic or not necessarily aligned with your long-term plans or purpose. So here's a simple 7-step process to get us moving and keep us going, because as John Shedd wisely said, a ship is safe in harbour, but that's not what ships are for. So let's start with not where we want to go, but reflecting to raise our awareness of our personal why. If you've done this before and have a fairly consistent why, then this could be a very simple step. My big why won't surprise you, and it's to create inclusive environments that enable introverts to flourish. If this is your first time thinking about your why, consider questions like, what are my core beliefs? What values are important to me? What drives me? What's my purpose? What is important to me in life? Understanding your personal why can provide clarity and direction in your life that will serve you well and make knowing what aligned action to take so much simpler. A word to the introverted overthinkers though, don't get bogged down at this first step, as it's more likely to lead to procrastination and therefore inaction. And most of us are refining this all of the time, so it's not a once and done job. Second step on the process is to take your personal why and use it to craft meaningful intentions or goals. Now, you know I prefer intentions, but if goals are your thing, please use the useful version of SMART, not the bodged, meaningless version that many of us have been taught more recently. So the version I'm talking about is where S is for specific, which includes the measure and the time period. Those are components of specificity. The M is for motivational. So what's in it for you? Why does this particular goal inspire you so that you'll stick at it when things get tough or when you face resistance? A is attainable. But not a breeze. There has to be some stretch involved, something that means we're growing. R is relevant, not realistic, because essentially that's the same as attainable. Relevant to what though? Well, relevant to your overall purpose, so any action is aligned. This minimises wasted effort that doesn't move the needle. Finally, T is for trackable, so you'll create some milestones that help you maintain momentum and help you know whether you're ahead, behind, or on schedule. This allows you to replan where necessary. So please, please, please stop using the meaningless version of SMART and revert to this original. I always talk about whether the goals that we create are away from or towards goals in all of my programs, and whether you define a goal or an intention, either will make your effort more compelling and aligned, so you'll pursue them with greater passion and feel more satisfied. Having clarity on your why and your goals or intentions, the next part, the decision making, becomes so much easier. When faced with choices, you can quickly evaluate them based on whether they align. I did a whole episode on decision making back at episode 197, so please go back and have another listen to that episode if it will help. Next, the more we take action aligned with our why, the more fulfilled our lives will become. After all, you're now doing things that really matter to you, or in a way that really matters to you. If you're employed, it would be all too easy to say, there's nothing I can do about this. I'm given work to do and told how to do it. This may be where you need to start making some decisions about what you're prepared to put up with, and only you will know when you've reached your tipping point. I left my employer of 19 years when I finally had enough of my values being compromised. I couldn't, in all conscience, do what I was being asked to do, even though the money was good. Easy to say, I know, but money isn't everything. Maybe one of your early actions is to find your voice and start providing necessary feedback. It's certainly a big part of the Frustrated to Flourishing program. Next, as you take aligned action and become known for what you want to stand for, you'll find you attract like-minded people who share your values and beliefs. I know you're an introvert, but please don't let attracting like-minded people alarm you. We all need human connection, even we quiet ones. And from experience, I can assure you that when you find those who really understand you, it's not as draining as being around dementors. You'll find you're able to build deeper and more authentic relationships and on your own terms. These people will become part of your intentional support network who will help to sustain you when things get tough. We then get to the topic of my World Introvert Day webinar, Resilience. Knowing your why can heighten your motivation and therefore strengthen your resilience so you're able to overcome challenges and deal with the setbacks that come your way. Knowing who you are, warts and all, is important here so that you're not going to be knocked off your feet. When you have a clear sense of purpose, you're more likely to stay committed to your intended actions and keep that forward momentum. Finally, keep revisiting your why, your purpose, and your goals or intentions so that you're making continuous improvement. What's the next goal or action you plan to make so that you reach your ultimate aspiration? The trick is always to make sure it's aligned so you're not tempted by shiny objects or enlisted into someone else's dream. This is why we start each program with your why, then where or how you want to be, before planning your actions. Action always aligned is my motto here. I don't have time or energy for spurious or ineffective actions. Now, just a few words about the actions themselves from a psychological perspective. I'll be going into more detail on this and what typically stops us from taking braver actions in my next episode, but here's a few points to start with. Start with small, doable goals. We know that as introverts, we're overstimulated already, and if we set what some people call those big, hairy, audacious goals, we're more likely to get overwhelmed and fall at the first hurdle. So, start small, but it still has to matter to you, or you won't put in the effort. And small still requires some degree of bravery. Next, let's stick with the small doable theme here, as I'm all for sustainable changes. Now that you have your first small doable goal, determine the first small doable action. This will be something that can be done pretty quickly. The thing people often refer to as the low-hanging fruit. Taking swift action is important as you're less likely to revert to type and retreat into the shadows. You're building new neural pathways here, and that's like cutting a new path through long grass. You have to walk the new path repeatedly so it doesn't grow back. Next, reward yourself for taking action. Whether your progress was what you hoped for or not, do something that constitutes a pleasurable reward for you. Tick it off, take a break, go for a swim or a walk. Share your progress with an accountability buddy or someone in your support network. The important thing is that you treat yourself in some way for your effort. Why do you think gamification has become so popular? It provides the reward that many people need. Next, we're going to keep the momentum with another small doable action. Get that next low-hanging fruit picked so that you're starting to create an aligned action habit now. Tick it off and get that sense of satisfaction. Finally, once you've tackled all of the small actions associated with the first small doable goal, it's time to move on to the next goal. Now that you have some success under your belt and can see the progress you're making, you know that your new habit is starting to embed. Congratulations. And to close, remember that all of this is an experiment, or as I shared in my regrets episode, if there are mistakes, you can evaluate them, learn from them, and then leave them on the cutting room floor. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.